Hi, I'm Meg Tucker from Cook with Meg, and today I am going to teach you all about eggs and how to cook them different ways. We're calling this Egg Skills 101. The first thing we're going to talk about is the egg itself. Whether you use white eggs or brown eggs, exactly the same. The only difference is the color of the chicken, the color of the hen. So white and brown, all the same. Large eggs are typically what you would get if you're buying them at a grocery store. So recipes, when they say 2 eggs or 4 eggs, they usually imply that we're using a large egg. But you're gonna use whatever eggs you have. It is all good. The first egg I'm gonna show you how to make is a scrambled egg. Who doesn't love scrambled eggs? So delicious, so easy. And we're gonna start with just 2 eggs. We're gonna keep this nice and simple. We're gonna crack them into a little bowl. I always crack my eggs. I'll put the shells in the sink. I'll grab those later. I'll use a brown and a white just to show you. They're just the same. Now you might notice, and actually this is a good example, you might notice that the color of the yolk is a tiny bit different. Washed my hands, that is key. Always keep your hands washed in the kitchen, especially if you're touching anything raw. But I'm gonna hold this up. Can you see that one of the yolks looks a little more orange and one of them looks a little yellower? That really just depends on what the chickens were eating. So we're in Alberta, and typically hens would eat a grain-based diet, which would be wheat, and that would be traditionally a little more pale in the yellow department. But if you had eggs that were, if you were living middle of Canada, eastern Canada, Ontario, anywhere east, they are predominantly on a corn-based diet, and you know the color of corn, so you're gonna have a bit of a darker yolk. So what I'm doing, I have a little whisk. I'm just giving them a whisk. If you don't have a whisk, use a fork. I'll make the swap so you can see. Sometimes the egg white grabs hold, doesn't wanna let go. Fork will work just as well. And what we're doing is we're combining the yolks, where you're gonna find the fat, the vitamins, all that nutrition, with the whites, the albumin, which is where you find the protein. So I'll move these eggs out of the way because we're gonna be showing you lots of different ways to make eggs. And you're gonna see, oh, I'm gonna get my induction burner, zoom it right on in. I have my recipe. Not that there's a lot needed for today's recipe, but I do also have a frying pan. Just a small frying pan. We're only doing a couple of eggs for this first demo. It's just teaching you how to make a good scrambled egg, and a yummy scrambled egg is so wonderful any time of day, paired with anything at all or just on its own. And the couple of tricks to this are a pan that's a good size. You don't want too big of a pan if you're only doing a couple of eggs. You want a little salt, a little pepper, and a little bit of fat. So today I'm going to be using butter, and I'm going to be putting just about a tablespoon of butter. If you have margarine, that totally works. If you would prefer to use oil, that works. We're gonna put down about a tablespoon. And we're going to take our eggs and we're gonna just add a little pinch of salt and a little pinch of pepper. Now there are a lot of people who believe you don't salt them at the beginning, you salt them at the end, you pepper them at the end, you pepper them at the beginning. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really make a big difference. We're gonna let our butter start to melt, and I have a spatula, but I wanna share something with you. The secret to a really good scrambled egg is getting the egg into the pan when the pan is still lukewarm and you still see that butter hanging out. Truth. We're gonna get all of the egg. I want all of that in, so scrape it all in. And the key, once again, is low heat. So medium low, this goes 1 to 10, and I'm literally putting it on about a 3 or a 4. And we're gonna start to move our spatula around to create the curd. How many of you have ever had cheese curds, right? It's pieces. It's sort of like misshapen blobby pieces. That's essentially what we're doing. We're cooking the egg, the scramble. We're making it a scramble, but we're letting the surface area on the bottom cook for a little bit, and then we're kind of shimmying our spatula and moving it around. And when it cooks on the bottom, okay, imagine cooking, then we're using our spatula to kind of push it to one side, push it to the other side, and then they cling together. Those proteins cling together, and that's what forms the curd or the shape of the scramble. So again, really not a lot of movement. We're not being rough. We're not whisking it in the pan. And this is a non-stick pan. So I will say that even though we put the butter down in, sometimes I will also take a little bit of non-stick spray and just give my pan a spray at first. Extra protection so that we don't have anything really sticking. So we're moving the spatula around. Now, truth be told, that's it for your scrambled eggs. We're gonna keep cooking them for another couple minutes here. I'm gonna grab a plate so that I can show you what they look like. We're gonna talk now about how far do we cook them? How much do we cook them? Well, that depends on what you like for a scrambled egg cook. Some people like theirs to be really soft. You'd hear them say a soft scramble. We're almost at a soft scramble now. They're still a little wet. Not really what I like, but to each their own. I like a nice big curd, so I don't like to chop them up too much. And I like them a little more well done, so I'm gonna let them go just a little bit further. But wanna know the very last secret to a really beautiful scrambled egg? You add in another little tiny nugget of butter almost at the end. And that is my secret to the most delicious, flavorful scrambled egg. Because what it allows this to do is it allows that butter to kind of coat your scramble and make it really glossy and really flavorful. I have salted butter. If you have margarine with salt, it just gives it just an extra yummy bit of flavor. Heat turns off. We're literally there. And if you have a spatula, you can use a spatula, or you can simply just tumble those onto your plate. Depending on the curd size, these are really big curd sizes. I could definitely have made them a little smaller, but I like them. You don't necessarily need to cook scrambled eggs to the point where they're brown. Some people like them darker, that's okay. I like mine just looking really, really beautiful, white, a little glossy from that butter. They're gonna be really hot, but I do wanna try them. They're creamy. They're luscious. Can we say luscious? They're luscious. They're creamy, a little salty. You get that milky from the butter. Again, maybe you used a little bit of oil, maybe you used a little bit of margarine. These are fantastic. Scrambled eggs, done. Who wants to make a fried egg? Let's do it. We are back, and now we have made scrambled eggs. They were gorgeous, they were delicious. You're the expert now. So it's time to teach you how to make a fried egg. Fried eggs, of course, could be over easy. They could be sunny side up. I'm gonna show you maybe both, but for sure sunny side up. Easy, simple, no muss, no fuss. Into a frying pan, you'll have breakfast ready and on the table in just a couple of minutes. So what I want to show you here is I have my recipe again as a guide. If we look at a fried egg, not unlike a scrambled, it starts with a frying pan, and you don't need your frying pan to be too large. So I've just got a small 8-inch frying pan here in front of me, and I am going to start with a little bit of butter. So we'll put some butter in the pan. I have my burner, by the way, on about a medium. We don't ever want to go overboard. And I'm also going to add about a teaspoon of oil. Let's talk about why I'm doing both. We love butter and margarine because it has such a beautiful flavor, but butter, specifically butter, has what's called a pretty low smoke point. And what does a smoke point mean? Well, a smoke point means it can handle X amount of heat before it starts to burn. Butter, when it cooks those milk solids brown, and that's what when we get something called brown butter. And then when we get brown butter, we can eventually go from brown to burned pretty quickly. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna add the butter because we love that delicious flavor, but we're gonna add a little bit of oil. This was olive oil, so that oil, tougher, can handle way more heat. So we've got the combo and the flavor of the butter plus the heat power from the olive oil, so we can get a nice fry going on the egg without anything burning. So we're gonna just do one right away. I have a bowl. I'm gonna crack, show you here, this out of the way. I'm gonna crack my egg into a bowl. You can crack it right into the frying pan, of course, but I always like to sort of do it in a little bowl first, give my hands a little rinse, got a little egg on my hands, bring my burner back in front of me. You get the point, you're at your own stove, and there is the egg. This has allowed me to take a look at it and make sure we're dealing with a good egg, no shell, everyone's happy. So we've got our heat. We're gonna gently lower in the egg. And what's going to start to happen, already I am seeing that the egg white is starting to set. So I'm gonna hold this close, and I'm gonna also zoom right in so you can see. Let me lift that right up so you can see it without tipping. You can see the bottom, the white, is starting to set. So just a couple of little tips. If you feel like it's traveled a little bit too far in your pan and you wanna make it look like the perfect egg emoji, you can kind of use a non-stick spatula to pull it all in. Sometimes the whites like to travel a little bit. That's essentially the beginning of a fried egg. So if we were to leave this just like this, this would be considered sunny side up. But what we have to do is we have to cook the white and the yolk. A lot of people get confused and they think, but how do I know when it's ready? The very best way to tell is you want the whites of your egg to go from clear to opaque, or from clear to white. You need them to be fully cooked. There usually is a bit of white around the yolk, and in this case, my outer part is starting to cook because it's really wispy thin, but right around the yolk is definitely still very clear. So I like to take a lid and just pop a lid down over it. What that's doing, doesn't even have to be the right lid, it could be a lid that's smaller like you see this one, but what it's doing is it actually traps the heat underneath and it creates this convection method, and the air and the heat start to circulate. And what that's doing is it's creating a convection oven, if you will, and the steam is going to help cook that egg. Now, if you lift it off, just be careful. I can already see that the whites are definitely starting to set. That's when we know potentially it's ready to eat. But that's if you like your egg yolk to be a little runny. Put a little pinch of salt, put a little crack of pepper. This is a sunny side up egg. And again, lid goes down, and that helps create that venting process, and that convection is what we want. That's going to help create a steam tunnel that's going to cook everything. So normally for this we would give it 3 or 4 minutes and you should be good. Visually you can keep taking a peek at it and you can see right now, if I were to look at this, I definitely can give it a little shimmy. We're almost there if you like a runny yolk. But I just feel like the whites just around the edge still need another little, maybe 1 more minute, 30 seconds to a minute. If you want to cover it with a lid, I also recommend turning the heat down ever so slightly, because know that it's hotter under there. When you're all trapped in, it's definitely hotter. So you don't need to have blasting heat, or else you're really gonna run the risk of maybe overcooking it. All right, so we're good. I'm ready to take this out. I'm gonna turn my burner off. I'm gonna shimmy underneath. That's looking fabulous. And there we have a very pretty, still runny, sunny side up egg. If you're not sure, you can take a knife or even just a clean finger and just make sure that the whites around are fully cooked. Now there is something we've talked about before called carryover cooking. Even when I'm taking this off the heat, that puppy is still cooking. I can still hear it sizzling. So you sometimes might feel like it's not cooked yet, I'm not ready, when in fact, by the time you get it to your plate with your bacon and your toast and everything else, this yolk might be quite well set. So there's one. We're going to do the same thing again, and we're going to do an over easy fried egg. So we're gonna turn the heat back on. I am turning the heat a little bit lower though, because it has had a good 5 minutes of heat. You're gonna hear that sizzle happening fairly quickly now. And I only added a little bit of butter. I don't necessarily need to go in with oil because I'm feeling pretty comfortable at this point that the pan is still pretty oily. I don't think I'm going to need it again to add more, but I'm gonna crack my egg, just like I did before, into my bowl. There it is. I'm gonna lower it down into the frying pan. I'm gonna rinse my fingers. We do a lot of hand washing, as you well know. And I'm gonna use that spatula to kind of pull it in. Sometimes it likes to make its way to all 4 corners of my frying pan, and I definitely wanna give it a good chance to kind of come together. Not every egg is gonna flow perfectly into your frying pan. Please know that it is a-okay if you break the yolk. It's okay if the egg doesn't look round and perfect like an emoji. None of this matters. So let's let it do its thing. I actually do the cover-up method no matter what, even if I am flipping it. I am going to just move a couple of items, and I am gonna do an over easy. So again, we're cooking for about 2 minutes. Then we're gonna try to flip it over and cook it for another 30 seconds or so. This egg is a little wacky. The egg whites kind of were like, we're going here and I'm going here and I don't care where you go, I'm going over here. It's a little flour fluffy. That's okay, I'm okay with that. We're gonna give it a flip here in a couple minutes. So just let it do its thing. You don't want your heat too high. If you want to tuck the sides in a little, tuck those sides, flip it up, give it a little clean up, if you will. If you notice that your pan is starting to look darker, that could just be the fats that are cooking. So what I do is if I'm cooking a lot of eggs, I will take, after a couple or 3 or 4, just a piece of paper towel, give my pan a bit of a wipe and almost reset and start over, just so that we don't have a dark fat cooking the eggs. If you don't mind, I don't mind, but if you want to keep them relatively white in color, then we do want to get rid of some of the fat. Okay, so I'm comfortable flipping this, kind of like when you make a pancake, you get it as close to under as possible. The trick is you kind of tilt your pan so that you're not having to tilt the egg very much. Gently give him a little push. If you want to cover it up, you can cover it up. We're going to cook it on the other side, over easy. We're going to cook it for just another 30 seconds for over easy, 30 to 60 seconds for over medium, and another 1 to 2 minutes for over hard. All depending on how you like your eggs. If you like that to be runny or not, you do your thing. We're letting it do its thing. Give a little pepper. My butter was salted, so I'm gonna ease up and not really do salt. I can always adjust once I take this out of the frying pan. This is looking amazing. I'm gonna turn my heat off and very carefully, there we go. Let's move this guy over. You're getting a best friend. over Easy Best Friend, and there you have it. So my yolk, I can see my yolk is definitely still going to be a little runny. This yolk is starting to set up. Sunny side up, over, we're gonna call this one over medium maybe, and there are your fried eggs. Next up, we're going to make a poached egg. Let's do it. Hi friends, we're back. We are getting ready to poach an egg, and we are doing it literally pro style. So what you will see is I have just a saucepan that's about half filled with water. I have my burner up very high right now because I want to bring this water to a simmer, not a boil. In fact, you can bring it to a boil and then bring it back down to a simmer, but a simmer is right below a boil. So it's right before it starts to boil. We start to see those little swampy bubbles, I call them, happening, and that's what we're looking for. So to my water, I'm gonna add a teaspoon of salt, and I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of vinegar, regular white vinegar. That is going to help when the poaching happens. That's gonna help all of my egg whites actually stick together. Now, for the first time ever, I'm actually gonna move the camera so that you can see right down into the pot. So the next view that you see is going to be just the pot, and you'll only hear my voice. Are you ready? Let's do it. All right, so we are starting to see that it is getting to a simmer, and I'll even turn this around so you can just see those little swampy bubbles starting to happen. Beautiful. All right, that's starting to simmer. So the first thing we're going to do, just like a fried egg, we're gonna crack 1 egg into a little bowl. That is the easiest way to do this kind of a poached egg. You can see it starting to simmer. It's actually starting to get a little hotter than I want, so I am gonna lower the heat. And to make a poached egg, we're gonna take our egg that we have in this little bowl, we're gonna lower it down into the water. But in order for it to come together in a poachy fashion, we're gonna take a slotted spoon and we're going to create, it's super cool, a bit of a wind tunnel. This is science, everyone. So let's get it spinning, spinning, spinning. When I release the spoon, I'm going to put the egg down in, and because the water is spinning around and around and around, it's going to make our egg stick together. Are you ready? Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Oh, that was so cool. So look at it. It literally spins it. And it spins to the point where all of those egg white strands wrap all the way around. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to very carefully let it do its thing. If you need to adjust the heat ever so slightly, we do want to make sure that we have this on a simmer. And right now, my egg is sitting on the bottom. But watch what happens when the heat kind of pops and those bubbles sort of make their way. Watch, look what it's doing. It's literally moving my little pouch, my little egg pouch, in and around. Don't worry if you have a couple of little wispy strands. We can fix those. Sometimes you can kind of tuck them on top. Don't worry, we'll deal with those. But what's happening is the water and the heat on simmer is gently poaching the egg. The vinegar has actually done a really great thing because it's helping to connect all of that protein together, and it's helping to keep it all together nice and tight. So we're gonna go another another minute or two. We're gonna let that cook. Again, if you have to adjust your heat up and down ever so slightly, you can. It's so much fun poaching eggs. Now, traditionally when we poach an egg, you would do no more than 1 or 2 in the pot at one time. I always say that I would rather do 1 at a time and be super comfy with it and how it turns out. And then reheating them is easy. So you could essentially, if you wanted to make 6 poached eggs, you could do 1 at a time or 2 at a time, let's say, get them all out onto a paper towel lined plate. And then when it comes time to eating them, you would just carefully submerge them back into hot water for about 30 seconds to bring the temperature back up. So watch what's gonna happen here. If I were to check this right now, I'm gonna use a slotted spoon, and when I pick it up, look at that. You can tell that that is still a very, very beautiful, soft poach. But I want it to go a little further. I'm still seeing that the whites on the egg are a tiny bit clear. We use the word translucent, and I want those to become opaque. We want the whites to be fully cooked. Nobody wants to get an egg, whether it's fried or poached or scrambled, where the whites haven't yet cooked. So let it do its thing. If you find you're seeing a little bit of foam happening, don't worry about it. You can scoop a little bit of that out. It's just a little bit of the egg white protein that makes little foamy bubbles. The vinegar sometimes reacting to it makes a little bit of a bubble. Again, my heat is now very high. That's a boil. So I'm turning that down. We don't want to make this a disruptive space. We want this to be gentle for our poach. Take another look. You can hold on to the spoon and gently touch. It's hot, but you can gently touch the whites, and I can tell that my whites are set up exactly where I need them. So I'm gonna go back to the other view. Give me 1 sec, but right now you're gonna see me very carefully place that down on paper towel. I'm gonna turn this off. I'm gonna move it out of the way. Let's see if you can still see it. Let's set that down, just like that. You know what, I can stay here for now. I'll let it stay here. Let me just take a quick look. Yeah, you can totally see that. So we'll leave it here. Right now, at this stage of the game, this is beautifully cooked, and I could leave that, and it could sit, and I could work on egg 2, egg 3, egg 4. But what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna turn it over, because how you would present an egg, let me grab the paper towel off of here. You always wanna present a poached egg with the side that was a little bit scruffy as the underside. So very carefully, give him a little turn. I mean, I think that's pretty close to perfect. And the very most fun part of all, if you wanted this to be a soft poach, we're looking for a runny yolk on the inside. Your recipe, of course, will show you if you want this to be longer and you want it to be medium or you want it to be hard, you would poach it for longer. But right now, I'm going to take my knife, we're gonna cut right into the center, and we're gonna see the beautiful yolk and all its glory on our perfectly poached egg. Come on, that's gorgeous. Well, there we have it. We have mastered the egg basic skills: scrambled eggs, poached eggs, fried eggs, sunny side up, over easy. We've done almost all of the eggs, maybe more for next time. I hope that you have had fun. I have loved cooking with you. Please remember to clean your kitchen, put everything away for the next person, give your hands a wash those dishes, load that dishwasher. And until next time, please have fun and always remember, we are awesome. For more, cookwithmeg.com, and we'll see you next time.